on the series of lessons on Shabbat series lesson number 5. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about Shabbat, the 5 senses, and the 6th sense. And this is going to be a little bit out of what you probably have heard before about Shabbat. And the reason we're going to be talking about the 5 senses and the 6th sense is because Shabbat, as we're going to see, is a gift that the Creator has given us so we can understand what we need to attain in our spiritual work. And that goal that we need to attain is basically the Kedusha, the level in which we're connecting to our soul, and the level that will connect us with the whole system, spiritual system, and to the world of Atzilut, the Olam Haba, the world to come, or the Gan Eden. It has different names, but at the end it's the same concept with different names. And in Shabbat we have that chance to have a taste of what it is to be on that level if we prepare and if we Welcome back. As we said in the introduction, we're going to be talking about the 5 senses and also a 6th sense that we need to develop during the Shabbat day. And you might be asking, why are we going to be talking about the 5 senses during Shabbat? How these have to do anything with Shabbat? We should be talking about resting, not working, right? And praying and all that. And that is going to happen during the next lessons. So what I want you to do is use each lesson that we're having as a introduction to something new each Shabbat that you celebrate. Okay, so every time that you take one of these lessons, try to apply that to the Shabbat celebration, to your Shabbat rituals at home. We're going to be dedicating these lessons, as I mentioned before, to the Shabbat as it is received at home. There can be other lessons in the future about Shabbat when it comes to celebrating with the community in the synagogue. But for that, if you have any questions about that, I can give you a good source, and that you can go and actually even have lessons with one of my friends and rabbi. So in here, like I mentioned, we're going to be talking about Shabbat as it is celebrated and at home. And we're going to see why it is important that if you are not, if it's not possible for you to participate together with a congregation, that you do celebrate Shabbat at home, and that you pay attention to these 5 senses in the physical body, and that you develop some kind of like equivalent in the spiritual realm to develop a 6th sense that will connect you to spirituality. Okay, so like I mentioned before, if you are interested in learning more about Shabbat in the synagogue, Shabbat, from the point of view of the community service, just let me know and I will connect you with my friend and Rabbi David Aaron Curtis, and his congregation, in which he gives classes about Shabbat. Okay, so let's start right away. The first thing that we need to know is that in this world, right, we have 5 senses. And these 5 senses, as we are going to see here, are the ones that are going to Let me see if I can get the laser pen, laser pointer here. So these five senses are the ones that are going to be in our physical reality. They're going to connect us with the physical reality. They're the ones that give us information about what is happening in our surroundings, in our environment, right? However, these also are centers of pleasure, right? When you see something beautiful, that gives you pleasure. When you hear some kind of sound of music, that gives you pleasure. Touching, it gives you pleasure. Tasting food, the taste is good, it's pleasure. Smell. So these are pleasure centers in our system, the physical system. Now, there's also what we call the archetype of these five senses in the spiritual realm. And these are the ones that we need to develop, these spiritual senses. And these are this is done by doing what is called blessings and to be grateful. And this is why we have developed, actually, I have the Spanish version here, but there's also an English version of a book that I wrote. It's called The Path of Blessings and Gratitude, in which you will see how you can actually use the sense of sight, and you can transform this pleasure into spiritual pleasure by when you see something blessing the creator or giving thanks to the creator for giving you that such sight and things like that. Or when you hear something like, say, like thunder, something like that, you can give a blessing to the creator because you heard that thunder, that shows that how powerful is nature and things like that. And this is how you start utilizing these five senses and starting to develop what is called a sixth sense. So the sixth sense basically is what in Kabbalah you're gonna find is a nekuda Shehalev, which is a point in the heart, the desire for the upper world. So you start developing a desire now for a sixth sense. Okay, I am connecting myself with the spiritual counterparts of my surroundings and my environment. Now I know there's much more beyond these environments and this system that I live in. And this is where you start developing this sixth sense that then is going to help you see beyond. It's going to help you see the whole system as it is, and where actually is the root of everything that we are in this moment living, learning, going through, and it gives you also the real purpose of life. Okay, and that's an important thing to understand, that these five senses have spiritual counterparts. In order to connect to those spiritual counterparts of these five senses is by being grateful and giving thanks to the creator, blessing the creator, right? And that's how we transform them from receiving pleasure for only ourselves, but also receiving pleasure from ourselves, but also giving back to the creator by acknowledging the source of this pleasure that we're receiving. And this helps us in turn, receive this sixth sense. Okay, but why we need to talk about five senses and a sixth sense? Why this is important? Something that you need to keep in mind is that everything that we are learning in Kabbalah has its roots in the Torah. In this case, we know that Shabbat is mentioned in Genesis. God created the 6 days, right? On the seventh day, he rested. So during the 6th day, he created everything that needed to be created, everything that exists. And on the seventh day, he rested. So if we're creating the image of the creator, right? And we want to be like the creator, we need to do the same thing, rest on the seventh day. Meaning, it's not only resting of physical work, it's resting also of different kinds of corrections and work that we do during the what is called the weekdays, right? Which resemble the 6,000 years of correction. On the seventh day, we are participating in the same resting day that the Creator participated in the beginning of creation. And that is a place that is called the world of Atzilut. But we cannot enter there by just desiring it, and that's it. We can desire to enter the world of Atzilut, but if we do it in an egoistic way, it will not happen. We will not attain that. It has to do with a connection with other people. And this is why it is important to celebrate Shabbat at home, but also with the congregation, and also to keep in mind that we're celebrating Shabbat at our home or at the congregation. But at the same time, there's a whole bunch of other people around the world doing the same thing. So in one way or another, we're creating this network of spiritual energy around the world that will connect us and create this mass of energy that will help us elevate our soul to this level called Atzilut, or the Gan Eden. So Shabbat is a taste of Gan Eden, or the Garden of Eden. Shabbat is a taste of spirituality. It's a gift from the Creator, and it's temporary, right? After that, we're going to have Havdalah. And in Havdalah, we have to divide the holy from the secular, okay? But like we mentioned before, everything comes from the Torah. So specifically where in the Torah we have this allusion to what we do in Shabbat, because in Shabbat we're trying to correct something that happened in the beginning. And what we're going to talk about is what happened during the process of what we call the sin of Adam and Chava, Eve. And in Bereshit 3, Genesis 3, we're going to see that the serpent talked to Chava and tells her, that the Creator really said, that you shall not eat of any tree of the garden, right? So in here, well, when the serpent is talking, you are actually seeing that the sense of hearing is already getting damaged by the serpent, right? Then the woman started replying, we may eat of the fruit of the other trees of the garden. It is about fruit of the tree in the middle of the garden that God said you shall not eat or of it or touch it lest you die, right? The serpent said you are not going to die. But God knows as soon as you eat of it, your eyes will be open and you will be like divine beings who know good and bad. When the woman saw the tree, so now from the hearing sense, now we're going to the sight, seeing, saw that the tree was good for eating and a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was desirable as a source of wisdom, right? So she took, meaning she touched, right, and ate. So how many senses we have here? Hearing, sight, touch, and taste. She also gave it to her husband and he ate. But there's one sense here that was not mentioned, and that sense is the sense of smell, right? And this is something that we're gonna see that's the reason in Havdalah we smell the spices, because it's the only sense that was not corrupted by the snake, by the serpent, by this desire to receive egoistically, right? And then what we're going to see, is that basically they fell from what we call that level of spirituality to a level in which we call the animal level. And that's what we need to correct. What happened here in the Garden of Eden during this time. And this is the reason why we are going to talk about the five senses, because in Shabbat we're not only going to be celebrating Shabbat in a way that we have all these rituals and everything, and it makes us feel that we're doing something good. It has to do with intentions. What kind of tools we're using at this moment? We're using physical tools like the cup, the challah, the bread, the candles, the food and all that, but also we're using our five senses, and we need to make sure that these five senses are make more subtle or more spiritual, by doing the blessings that we do, by remembering when we touch that cup and raise it in order to do the kiddush, that we are also raising the sense of touch, right? So in Shabbat we have the use of these five senses. For the sight, right, we're correcting what happened to Adam and Eve when they saw the fruit, right? By doing the candle lighting, by observing the flame, by observing the challah cover, the cover of the bread, the adornments that we do in Shabbat, right? Because we're supposed to adorn the table, adorn the house, make everything beautiful. We also, know that Hava and Adam touch the fruit, right? So how we help develop a better, um, say, spiritual, we connect to the spiritual counterpart of touch by hugging and touching loved ones during the children blessings and the Eshechayil, and the lifting of the Kiddush cup. But remember, everything is according to blessings, right? So the side, we have the candle lighting, we do a blessing for that, right? During the challah cover, things like that, we don't do blessings for that, but the challah itself, just to see it, we can make our own blessings or be thankful to the Creator for giving us opportunities to celebrate Shabbat with in such a way, that it feels like we are royalty, right? Now the taste, it's also utilized or make spiritual when we do the blessing for of the kiddush and also eating the challah and the Shabbat foods. Okay, the hearing, it's also spiritualized when we listen to the blessings and Shabbat songs or the semirot, and this is how we are connecting to that spiritual sense of hearing. The smell, we connect to that one, but remember that one um, wasn't corrupted by the serpent, right? But that's why we use it as as a tool to say goodbye to the Shabbat, right? Because that smell of the spices, is a way to bring something with us. It gives us some kind of pleasure, and in psychology, you're gonna see, that when we smell something that is good, develop, a sense of pleasure because of the dopamine in our brain, right? Uh, so it's very important to keep this in mind. Now we're going back to a slide that we saw in the previous lesson, and is that the slide about this neshama yeteira. And it's important to know how this neshama yeteira has a connection with the five senses. Okay, so we're gonna go over this again so you understand, what the neshama yetira is and how this neshama yetira or additional soul, it's important in Shabbat. During Shabbat, there's a tradition of receiving an additional soul, right? To grasp this concept, it's essential to explore the soul's three dimensions: neshama, ruach, and nefesh. Neshama resides above the brain, ruach within the heart, and nefesh connects to the liver. When nefesh and ruach, tied to human emotion, intertwine with the body, neshama, originating from higher realms, remains somewhat detached. At death, the neshama departs while the nefesh stays and the ruach fluctuates. Every year, annually, revisiting of the death anniversary, right? The nefesh center to bodily needs. The nefesh is centered to the bodily need, right? It drives basic functions like eating, while the neshama focuses on spiritual matters, aspiring to align life with God's will. The ruach oscillates between the neshama and the nefesh. On weekdays, the ruach aligns with the nefesh. On Shabbat, detached from mundane tasks, it connects with the neshama. During Shabbat, each Jew is gifted with the additional soul. As Shabbat concludes, ruach reunites with nefesh, and the extra soul returns to heaven. Right? So this is like the Havdalah, right? So instead of for ruach being connected to the the neshama, the neshama departs, and this is why we do the Havdalah. Basically, we're seeing this departure, but we are missing it, right? We're gonna be missing this because we want to be connected all the time, and the extra soul returns to heaven. This influx of spiritual energy during Shabbat facilitates deeper understanding of God's teachings. Consequently, there's a sense of loss as Shabbat ends. To ease this transition, the tradition of Havdalah includes smelling spices, easing the melancholy associated with binding farewell to the extra soul. So this is what is very important, to keep in mind, that this extra soul is not in reality that you're receiving a soul that is different from the soul that you have. It's still part of you, but it's that you are basically having what is called an elevation of your soul, in which the nefesh and the ruach elevate themselves to a point in which the ruach it's connected to that level called neshama, right? So it's very important to keep that in mind as we are studying this. Now, the sixth sense. Through special actions, we can reveal higher levels of perception beyond our 5 limited corporeal senses of vision, hearing, taste, smell, and touch. These senses allow us to perceive the world only to a limited extent, leaving many phenomena hidden from us. We use instruments like binoculars and radar to expand our sensory range, yet they remain limited. The science of Kabbalah, however, creates an additional sixth sense that reveals the hidden aspect of reality. The sixth sense is the soul we receive in Shabbat when properly prepared with the right intention. We transcend and rise above ourselves, freeing ourselves from the limitation of our body and its 5 senses. Our spiritual sense exists beyond our physical body, extending across all reality. This allows us to perceive everything. So the sixth sense is this extra soul that we're receiving on Shabbat, right? The additional soul, neshama yeteira, okay? So it's very important to keep that in mind. So it's not that you're going to have some kind of vision or spirituality like you're gonna see in the movies and things like that, that you can see what is hidden from the eyes of men, in a way that you can see ghosts, demons, angels, and things like that. It goes beyond that. This is a sixth sense that you may see things like that during the weekdays and all that, but in Shabbat you see something else. In Shabbat you're seeing the spiritual realm that is beyond all those things. Because what you hear about people talking about that they can see ghosts, that they can see that has nothing to do with the real spirituality. That's a low level. It's in some traditions they call it the astral level. That has nothing. That's still kind of like in the physical realm, not spirituality as it is. It is called Kabbalah. Spirituality is beyond that. It's beyond the astral place. Spirituality is that place in which we are connected and we are one, and there's no division among ourselves. That's real spirituality. The rest is just a path that we need to actually to get there, right? It's called also a ladder. It has different rungs. So that is just a rung that the person is seeing, but that's it. That doesn't mean that the person has a sixth sense. They just have this kind of extra sensorial thing that they can perceive these energies, and that's all. Now the extra souls, the Neshama Yetera, has different kinds of levels that can help us connect in Shabbat. So I want you to pay attention because this is a lot, and it's very important to pay attention to every one of these levels that we can connect. One is spiritual elevation. The extra soul signifies a heightened state of spiritual awareness and sensitivity that a person experiences in Shabbat. This additional soul elevates one's spiritual capacity, allowing for deeper contemplation, enhanced prayer, and greater connection to the divine. Okay? So it's a good opportunity for us to elevate ourselves, right? To be at a different level. In Shabbat, we are participating, we're doing rituals in the physical reality, but we need to have different kind of mindset this day. We need to elevate ourselves. into a level in which, even though we participate in the physical, our mind or head is in the spiritual level. This extra soul or sixth sense give us extra joy and peace. With the arrival of the extra soul, individuals often experience an increase of joy, peace, and a sense of completeness. This aligns with the overall atmosphere of Shabbat, which is meant to be a time of rest, celebration, and spiritual rejuvenation. Also, enhanced spiritual abilities. The extra soul brings with it enhanced ability to understand and appreciate spiritual truth. So when we're studying, right, we can get deeper insights, right? So we can engage better in Torah study, in prayer, and other commandments with a deeper sense of connection and insights. Also, the extra soul help us manifest what is called the divine presence, the Shekhinah, that rests on every person. This reinforces the idea that Shabbat is a time when the divine is more intimate present in the world and in the lives of individuals. And this is why we do the Lechadodi, the receiving of this feminine aspect in Shabbat, in which is receiving the Shekhinah, the feminine aspect, and we unite the feminine aspect with the masculine aspect of creation, and a symbolic wedding that we are doing during the prayers of the Lechadodi, right? Also, as I mentioned before, Shabbat is considered a foretaste of the world to come, right? So it's a preparation for the world to come. We're practicing already what it is to be there. The extra soul is seen as a preview of the heightened spiritual experience that one will experience in the afterlife. Also, as we also mentioned in previous lessons, is a gift, but it's temporary. The extra soul is a temporary gift that departs at the conclusion of Shabbat. This emphasizes the special and sanctifying nature of Shabbat, distinct from the rest of the week. The departure of the extra soul is often marked by the Havdalah ceremony, which symbolizes the separation between the holy day of Shabbat and the ordinary weekdays. Also, the sixth sense, the perception, helps us to perceive the divine, right? Allows individuals to perceive and connect with the divine presence and the spiritual realms. This heightened perception goes beyond the limitations of physical senses and enables one to experience a direct connection with God. And this is very important because it's something that when you are in the high level of connection, you can actually have insights on Shabbat during your meditations or your studies that sometimes will be hard for you to explain in words, because there's no way to explain what you are perceiving, what you are feeling, what you are sensing. And that's why the Kabbalists use this language called the language of roots and branches. When they see something in the spiritual realm, they name it using names of physical things, right? So we're gonna see that when a Kabbalist says that there is a water, there is a lake of water. In reality, the Kabbalist is not saying there's a real physical lake of water in heaven. He's just saying that the water signifies mercy, right? So there's an abundance of mercy, or a reservoir of mercy, right? So that's how we need to think. The symbolism that they're using, these names of physical things, in order to explain what is beyond our perception. And it's because there's no words to describe that. When you go to these spiritual levels, there's no language there, human language. There's a different kind of language that cannot be translated to the physical realm in the proper way. So that's why these symbolisms are used, right? Also, this extra soul or extra sense help us with inner transformation. Developing the sixth sense involves inner spiritual work, including meditation, prayer, and the study of Kabbalistic texts. This process transforms the individual inner being, making them more attuned to spiritual realities. So it's important, right, that in Shabbat you engage in meditation, prayer, and the study of Kabbalistic text. In you might say, but what about the Torah, right? We're supposed to read the Torah. The Torah is considered the main Kabbalistic text. Okay, so if you're studying Torah, you're already studying a Kabbalistic text. It doesn't have to be a book from a rabbi or anything like that. You just can study the Torah, and that will help you with your meditation. The Siddur, meditating on the prayers of the Siddur, that's also a good exercise that will help you with your inner transformation. Also help us with revelation of hidden realities. The sixth sense reveals aspects of reality that are hidden from the physical senses. This includes the understanding of spiritual forces, the working of the Sefirot, and the underlying unity of our creation. So this is something, once again, that the soul will help you. It's like we mentioned a binocular, right? This is kind of like a binocular and a microscope at the same time, in which you're gonna see different things from beginning to end and all that, and see how these interactions between these forces actually work, right? And this is something that will only happen if you're working and developing it properly by meditation, prayers, and studying. But also very important is the intention to connect with the other souls that are celebrating Shabbat during that day, and connection with the upper realm, that desire. But it's a desire that has to be non-egoistic, and that's the hard part for most of us, right? It will also give us enhanced intuition and insight. With the sixth sense, a person gains enhanced intuition and insight into the nature of reality and the spiritual dimensions of life. This deeper understanding helps guide one's actions and decisions in alignment with spiritual truth. And the more you prepare for Shabbat, and the more you use your five senses to develop this sixth sense, the more you have the proper intention for Shabbat, you are going to find that every Shabbat, you are going to feel some kind of transformation that will help you carry over, or you will carry over the next 6 days of creation, or the week. So every Shabbat is supposed to be a new beginning, but it's not a new beginning starting from zero. It's a new beginning adding what you learned from the previous Shabbat, and it's basically a cumulative, right? It's like this compound interest. When we look at the financial system, here's a compound spiritual development, that every Shabbat this actually is supposed to grow and grow more, and give us more and more what we could call spiritual shekels, spiritual money, right? And that's what we need to feel. Every Shabbat we should feel more full of this spiritual money that the Creator is giving us, because it's a gift, right? It's a gift. So as a gift, we need to feel happy, we need to feel pleasure, we need to feel all these things that we need to carry over to the next week. Also, it helps us with the tikkun and rectification. The sixth sense plays a crucial role in the process of tikkun or rectification, which involves repairing and restoring the world to its intended spiritual harmony. By perceiving the divine blueprint, individuals can align their actions with the purpose of creation and contribute to the overall reaction. So, very important is to know that when we are connecting to the higher realms, specifically to the world of Atzilut, this world is known as Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, the spiritual world. It's also known as the world of correction, because from Atzilut, that everything else, these days, are basically developed from. And from there, what we're going to see is that when we connect to this level of Atzilut, we are going to start sensing also what is happening with the rest of the world. We're gonna see that behind this chaos that we're living right now, political, social, uh, nature going crazy because we're destroying uh, parts of it because of our egoistic desires are growing and all that. We're going to see that behind all these, there's a spiritual harmony. There's a purpose for these things, and that purpose is always right in the eyes of the Creator. And if we're going to be like the Creator, this will help us understand that this is all a process of tikkun, a process of rectification, and that we need to participate, but at the same time, we need to understand that Shabbat is here to tell us that you can participate in this process by the path of light, or you can participate by the path of pain. What is the path of light? The path of the Shabbat day, this light that is in Shabbat, which is peace, right? That's why we say Shabbat Shalom, good Shabbos. Or you participate through the path of pain, which is the path of working hard, and sometimes working with no results at all. And that's the path of the 6 days of creation, right? The 6 days of correction, the 6,000 years of correction that will take us to the 7th millennium, which is a spiritual Shabbat. So this is something that in Shabbat you need to understand that is connected to that as well. It's a day in the week, but it's also a little taste of what is to come in the future and what is happening as well. Right now, what we're seeing, the chaos in the world, is the path of pain, but we can be in this world where everybody's in the path of pain, we can be also in the path of light by having the proper intentions and by knowing what's really happening behind all these things that we see as chaotic. Also, you can experience the oneness, right? One of the profound experiences facilitated by the sixth sense is the sense of oneness with all of creation and the Creator. This sense of unity transcends the apparent separations and distinctions perceived by the physical senses. So when you go to that higher level and you connect to these higher levels of spirituality, you're going to see that at the end, just once again going back to Genesis, we're all Adam and Chava. We're one soul, right? And we are little parts of that soul that need to go back to that level called the world of correction, the world of Atzilut, Gan Eden, Olam Haba, the word to come. Call it any way you like it, right? But it's a level in which we're one. And just like Chava and Adam, they didn't need anything. The Creator gave them everything, right? So we need to go back to that level. We need to go back to the beginning, go back to the genesis of everything. Also, this exercise helps us to climb the spiritual ladder. The development of the sixth sense is often described as climbing a spiritual ladder where each rung represents a higher level of spiritual awareness and closeness to the divine. This journey involves continuous self-improvement and spiritual growth. So, like I said, you're supposed to live Shabbat in a higher level and carry that level to the next week, the next 6 days that are following the Shabbat. And the Shabbat of that week, you're supposed to go to a higher level. So each Shabbat is supposed to be like a rung of a ladder that will help you in the whole of your life climb higher and higher and higher. Like I said, it's a compound interest that we're gaining. It's spiritual interest, right? Spiritual shekels that we're gaining. Okay, so I hope you have kept pay attention to these things, because these concepts are very important. This sense or sixth sense is very important. The spiritual sense is the one that is going to help us connect properly with what Shabbat is all about. Now, within us is our ego, right? This desire to receive, through which we currently perceive everything, always interpreting the world as we want to see it individually, right? This is why all of us have different points of view. We all live in the same place, same planet, yet we see things in a different way because it's according to what we desire, all selfish ways of seeing things, right? To develop an opposite sense that is directed towards or outwards rather than inwards, we must connect with others and build a shared vessels of perception during the eve and the day of Shabbat. So that means there's other people celebrating Shabbat. We need to connect with these other people as well. They might not be in the same house, in the same congregation, but in your mind, you need to think there's other people celebrating Shabbat in their houses. There's other people celebrating Shabbat in their congregations. And therefore, we are one network all around the world, creating this spiritual energy all around the world. And this energy is one. Our souls connect to each other, even though we don't know each other. We connect with each other, and this is how we create this vessel that will help us rise, or go to a higher level. Now, through this yearning for unity, we create a new altruistic sense that is common to all of us. By developing this mutual sense, we begin to see what is happening outside of ourselves, and this expanded perception is what I call the upper world of our Silut, the real Shabbat and Garden of Eden. Okay? You can also call it the Olam Haba, the world to come. So it's very important that we have that in mind, because just because you're celebrating Shabbat at your home by yourself or with friends or family, that does not mean that you are the one. You need to concentrate just on your spiritual work, and that's it. You need to have that intention to connect your five senses to the spiritual five senses, to develop this sixth sense. But to do this, we need to, everybody that is celebrating Shabbat, need to also have the proper intention to create this vessel that will yearn for this unity, that will create a basically a massive vessel, a kli, a desire for the upper world. And that's how everybody will rise as one, because we are one soul, right? So Shabbat is not only a day that we're resting and things like that. It has a lot of preparation, right, before we start celebrating the day. So it's very important to keep these things in mind, because the preparation, what is called the Eve of Shabbat, is very important. It's the first step to start elevating this world, as we're gonna see in we saw in previous lesson, right? But we're gonna start seeing, the Eve of Shabbat. This is what's happening. Then on Shabbat, there's an elevation. In the middle of Shabbat, there's another elevation. Then, and almost the end of Shabbat, we're at the highest level, and then Havdalah comes. We're going back down to the level of this world, right? So it's very important to have that. Now, I added here, like I mentioned, the book that I wrote, The Path of Blessings and Gratitude. In there, if you ever have the chance to get this book, you're going to find that in the appendix, I have blessings for touch, for tasting, smells, sights and sound, and special occasions and all that, because this is based exactly on this teaching. This book, The Path of Blessings and Gratitude, it's also in Spanish, is based on how we can use these five senses that we have and start seeing the world, not only on Shabbat, also during the weekdays, see the world in different ways. See the world not only with our physical eyes, but with our spiritual eyes. Hear the world not only with our physical ears, but with the spiritual ears, right? When we touch things, why it is important for us to feel the pleasure of touching things, right? Why it's important for us to give thanks for touching things, and also to give thanks and bless the Creator when we eat things. And this book is going to help you with that. Okay. Now, in the next lesson, we're going to start then talking about Kabbalah Shabbat. We talked in the previous two lessons, this lesson and the previous lesson, about the preparation for Shabbat, right? How you prepare yourself physically, how you prepare your house, your table. Now we're going to talk about the use of those tools and the spiritual significance when we're blessing the candles, when we're doing the kiddush, when we're blessing the children, the wife, when we're eating challah, when we're eating food, okay? And that's going to be Kabbalah Shabbat. And then the other lesson, we're going to talk about the day of Shabbat, and the last lesson is going to be the Havdalah. And we're going to look at the spiritual aspects of each of these actions and rituals that we do to understand Shabbat, okay? As always, make sure you share these and subscribe. If you have any question, make sure you write those questions below or send them through the contact page in our website, and I will gladly answer, as soon as I can. And if you have any ideas about any other video or anything like that, just let me know, okay? It's very important for me to know what is the desire out there, to know what, and that way, if I know something, I can share. Remember, we don't know everything, right? But it's a good desire that can help me also myself. We teach, but we also students of, we have our own teachers as well. So it's something also that can help us develop our own vessel as well. So if you have any questions, any ideas, or anything like that, let me know. Make sure you subscribe, like it, share it, do, anything you can, to share these lessons. They're free. In other places you will pay a lot of money for these lessons. We're giving them for free because in spirituality there should be no business to, you know what I mean, right? But it is important to understand, that we also accept some donations whenever possible, but most of the time, I don't ask for that. So like I said, lesson number 6 is going to be on Kabbalah Shabbat, and then all the lessons is Shabbat during the day, and then the last lesson is going to be Havdalah. So make sure you are there for that. So appreciate your time. Thank you for being with me here, and with others that are participating with this Shabbat series lesson, asking questions and learning more about the day of Shabbat. Like I mentioned before, my advice is every week that we are learning something new about the Shabbat, with this Shabbat series, try to apply it to the Shabbat that you're going to celebrate during that week. And in that way, you will get more than just listening to the lesson or listening to all these lessons at the same time, and then you will not remember everything, right? So make sure you listen one lesson at a time, one lesson a week. And that way you can practice everything that we're learning here, applying it, okay? All right. So I'll see you in the next lesson. Shalom.